Greetings. In this video we are going to talk about deploying a Django application on DirectAdmin. But what we are going to discuss here also applies on cPanel, as I have deployed Django applications both on cPanel and DirectAdmin using this process. My DirectAdmin is based on the Apache server. After developing a Django application, we often need to deploy the application. DirectAdmin and cPanel are two popular web hosting control panels that make it easy to manage your website and its backend files. They are most preferred because they are easy to use, secure, and provide file management, database management, and email management features. So in this video, I'll show you how to deploy a Django application to DirectAdmin, which is also applicable to cPanel, using a few simple steps. For this video, I assume that you already have a Django application ready to be deployed, and I'm opening mine here. It's just a basic application, which is just the default that is created by Django with a few edits. Now, there are a few things that you need to do to your local project before deploying it on DirectAdmin, which also applies on cPanel. Number one, you need to check your MySQL server. How do you check your DirectAdmin MySQL server version? And why should we do this? We need to do this because the version of the MySQL server on your server determines the version of the Django that you can use for your project. If your database version is 5 point, then you should use Django version less than 4.2. Any version above that will not work with MySQL versions 5 point something. If you have MySQL 8, if you have MySQL versions 8 or so, then you can use Django 4.2 and above. Now let's see how we can access our DirectAdmin and how we can access our MySQL version. After opening your browser and entering your domain name with the quad 2 at the end after a full colon, this page is going to show up. You enter your username, you enter your password, then you can sign in. Now this is my DirectAdmin. Now we want to see our MySQL version of our database. For us to be able to see that, we need to first create a database. You can create here on a shortcut, or you can go under account management, then you can go to MySQL management. You can then create your database. You choose your user, then you can choose either to make your database user to use the same name as your database, which I'll keep like that. If you don't want, you can select here, then you can choose any name of your choice. Then you can put your password. Make sure you put a strong password. Now this pop-up will show up. This is the data that we are going to use to log into our phpMyAdmin. Now you have a choice whether to use your database user or to use your DirectAdmin user to log into your phpMyAdmin. Now, for us to go there to my phpMyAdmin, we have to go under extra features. Then we choose phpMyAdmin. Then it will request for a username and a password. As I said, you can use the default, that is your DirectAdmin login details, or you can also use your database user details. I must say that when you're logging in, make sure you include the username, should include even the underscore. Like in my case, my Django deployee, that's my username for DirectAdmin. So you need to make sure that you include it when you're logging in, because it is put for you when you're creating a database. DirectAdmin always want to use the user, that is the DirectAdmin username, then they as your base name. Then you can add your custom name deploy, which means you have to enter Django deploy underscore deploy. Now when I'm logged in here, you can see that this is a 5.7 server. What this means is that we cannot use a Django version 4.2 and above. We need to use a Django version that is below 4.2 for compatibility purposes. Having explained this, it means now we need to look on the next thing. Our next thing that we want to talk about is our static files and the requirements.txt. Now, because of the issue that we just talked about, now the username that we use for our database and the password are going to be added under the settings.py, but we shall talk about that later. We need to now talk about the requirements.txt file. This is the file that we are going to use so that when we create our Django app, we don't need to install our packages one by one. So we are just going to run a pip install all the requirements. So now we mentioned that if you're using a MySQL version 5 point something, then you need to use your Django, probably the latest version as of now, which is below 4.2. is 4.111, but if you have a MySQL version 8 point something, then you can use any version of your choice. Then for the issue of static files, it's very important that we also add white noise to our requirements for saving our static files. Otherwise, the static files may not be applied on our project. Then for the database purposes, we also need to include our MySQL client, and you can choose any version of your choice. As of now, the white noise and MySQL client, these are the latest versions. Now make sure that your requirements.txt is in your project folder. That is the folder where your manage.py is residing. That will make it very easy for you. Having said this, we now need to look at other things that we need to configure on our settings.py. The first thing that we need to configure now is the white noise middleware, because we said we are including white noise package. So we have to go under our settings, we go under our middleware, then just after your security middleware, you have to add white noise.middleware. White noise middleware. Make sure you do that. Then having done that, it also means that we need to also go to our database settings and do some changes. So let's go on our database. Our cPanel and DirectAdmin mainly have a MySQL database server. So we are going to be using a MySQL database, and we need now to go under our databases. Then we add it as a default. If it is your default, you choose your database engine, which is django.db.backends.mysql. Then you can put the database name. You can copy this from the pop-up that showed up when we created our database. Then you can put your database user and you can put your database password. Then you can put your host, which is localhost, because it will be running on localhost. Port is not compulsory. Then there is this important part we need to talk about, which is the options. So we need to put this so that the database server runs our database on strict trans tables. Now, I recommend you to do this, because if you don't, then you may have data integrity issues, especially data truncation upon insertion. Now, when you run your first migration, this will be applied. So you need to comment it out, because it should not be run more than once. It is not necessary. Then the other setting that we need to do in the settings.py is our static root, because we are going to collect our static files using python manage.py collect static. So for that to work, we need to have our static root. Then we can set it to any folder, but in this case, I'm setting it to static files. Then when you apply this setting, make sure you go in your project and create the static file. It should be in the same folder as your manage.py. Now, having done this, our project is ready for deployment. There are many things that you need to do depending on your project, but these are the basics that I'm talking about. Don't worry about my other settings. They may not apply in your case. Some of them are additional. I'm leaving debug true for now, because I want us to see the Django default running homepage. Otherwise, if you have your project which is already ready for deployment, there is no need for you to set this to true. We have to set it to false for security reasons. However, I assume that you have a Django project that is ready to be deployed. All I'm doing now is to just do a few changes for the deployment. Okay, now let's look at how we can upload our code base to DirectAdmin. To do that, you need to open your DirectAdmin. Now, on our DirectAdmin, we need to go to File Manager, which you can find under System and Files. You open your File Manager. In this File Manager, for the purpose of organizing our projects, I'm going to create a folder under my files, which I'm going to call repositories. This is the folder or directory in which all our future Django projects can reside in. So we are going to call it repositories. Now our repositories folder is existing. Make sure that the permissions on this folder is 755, as you can see here. If it's not, you can right click on the folder, then choose set permissions and type 755 here. This will make it possible for our project to have access to this folder. Now after that, you can double click your repositories to open it. Then this is where our code has to go. But before our code comes here, we need to make sure that we zip our project. So another thing that we need to make sure also we do on our project is adding your domain name to your allowed hosts. In my case, it is django-deploy.jeremiahtaguda.com. So you need to make sure you do that. Now, to just have a run through of what we have to do before we deploy, we just want to confirm that we did all that is expected for our project, the minimum. Number one, adding our allowed hosts. We did that. Number two, adding white noise middleware. We did that. Number three, setting our database. We did that. Number four, adding your static files. We did that. It means our project is ready for deployment from a minimalistic point of view. We also created our static files. That is good. So it's now time for us to zip our project for deployment. Yes, this is one of the easiest ways, but I will talk about the other just to mention it. You can also use Git, that is version control. You upload your folder to Git, then you can just clone it from GitHub or any versioning system that exists. But that we shall talk about later. Now it's time for us to zip our project. when our project is zipped, we need now to go to our DirectAdmin repositories folder. Now it's time for us to upload our code base. There are options. The first option is just to go and drag and drop your zipped folder in this into this directory, or you can choose right click, then upload files, then you can go to your computer and access your files. Then you upload your files. It's already done. Now it's time for us to extract the contents of this folder. So we right click and we choose extract. Then make sure that here it's written /repositories, because we want our project folder to go into that folder. Now yes, it's there now under repositories, which means our project is up in our DirectAdmin. If you open it, you should be able to see all the files and folders that we created. Now it's time for us to create our Python app. It's because we have uploaded our folder to our server. It means everything is up and ready to run. To do this, we have to go to our DirectAdmin. Then we can go under extra features, then you choose set up Python app. Now we choose create application. This is the form that we have to fill in. The first thing we have to fill in is our Python version. The Python is our interpreter for our project. Then for our application root, we now have to use the root to where our project folder is residing in, the root in which we can find our manage.py, and that root is repositories /demo1 in my case. You can use your custom root which applies to your case. I had to copy that to avoid any errors, and our project is called demo1, as you can see here, demo1. Now we have to choose our URL, which is another important step. What is this URL? We are saying this is the uniform resource locator for our app, is your website URL. In my case, I'm going to choose django-deploy.jeremiahtaguda.com, so that if a user visits this, or she has to be able to see my homepage for the website. If you want, for example, your user to see, let's say the user is supposed to enter django-deploy.jeremiahtaguda.com/site. It means that we have to add that site path. If you need another thing, maybe my site, this is where you enter it, and the user is supposed to enter everything from the website domain name to the custom path that we're adding here. So do that if it applies to your project. But in my case, when a user enters my domain name, he or she is supposed to go to my website homepage. Then for our application start up file, we need to set that to our passenger WSGI. So this is the file which is going to load our application. This is our application startup file. And what is the entry point? Normally it is application. That is the default entry point created by Django. If you have your own entry point, then you need to make sure you put that. You can find that under your WSGI. In this case, it is application. So this is what we have to put here, application. Then this is where we have to put our passenger log file, where our logs are put by the Django application. You can put directory of your choice there. Then when you fill up our form with the Python version, the application root, the application URL, the application startup file, the entry point, and our passenger log file, it means everything is good. just remember that you need to manually create the demo1.txt. The folder Django apps should be created for you. If it is not created, you can create it. But the demo1 you should create manually. This folder is normally created for you when we start or create our project. So we are now having to create. As you can see, our Python app has been created successfully. This is where the errors for the Python app are shown. Errors which relate to installing PIP packages and stuff. So our application has been created. Congrats. But we are not yet there. We need now to stop our application so that we can run some Python scripts so that we can configure our application. Now we have now to go down and look at the configuration files. So we are saying the configuration files, we are talking about files like your requirements.txt, which have your list of Python packages for installation. So we have to type, in my case it is requirements.txt. Then as soon as you finish typing that, as soon as you type your content here, the add button will be activated. You click it. After clicking it, it's now time to click the run pip install, which is now activated as well. Then when you click, a drop down will show up. You have to choose the configuration file that you want to run. So I'm going to click my requirements.txt. As soon as it's complete installing, you see a message here, pip Python installed successfully. So it means there is no error. I will talk about the possible errors later. Now it means we have installed our white noise, we have installed our Django, we have installed our MySQL client. It is now time for us to look at the next thing, which is running or executing our Python scripts. If you want to edit your requirements.txt, which is here, you can just edit it here and save, or you can delete if you want to delete it. Okay, the next thing we want to look at is our passenger file. The passenger file is the one which we said is our application startup file. So let's go to our file manager. We open our file manager, then we go to our repositories and our project demo. You should be able to see the passenger file created for you. Let's open it. When you open it, you see all this stuff. Let's remove whatever that is there and replace with the following text, which depends on your project. My project is called demo1, so from demo1.wsgi import application. So this is the file that is saving our application. We save. Let's close this and go and execute some Python scripts. But before we execute our Python scripts, let's just remember that whilst we are still here, let's create our log file. We open our Django apps, which was created for us. Then we right click, we create a file. Mine is called demo1.txt. So you can put your file name there as you set it under the Python application here. Now it's time for us to run our Python scripts. One of them is collect static. So manage.py. We don't need to write Python, just write manage.py collect static. Then I'm putting a no input flag here so that it doesn't request for us to override existing static files. It will just run this command without requesting for our user input, as we can't enter an input from this platform. So it's running our command. You can see return code 0. It copied 130 files to our static files folder, and there is no error. So it means everything is okay. Then we can also run our migrations for the database. Manage.py migrate. We run our script. you can see the output here. The return code is 0. It did everything. It applied our migrations. There is no error there. So it means that we are progressing very well. But there are possible errors, which I shall mention under the error section. Now, it's now time to make sure that we create our super user. But I might just say it's important for you to collect your static files using collect static, so that your static files can be put under your static root, which is our static files folder in this case. Now it's time for us to create a super user, and for us to do that we need to go to our terminal. So if we now have to click here to copy our path to the virtual environment, I'll show you later, but okay, let me show you. This is our virtual environment. If you go under your my files, you should be able to see your virtual env. Then it's having repositories demo1. So this is your virtual environment. Having copied our path here, we can go to our Django admin dashboard, and we need to go under system info and files to the terminal. Now if you can't see the terminal here, request it from your hosting service provider. Then we can click our terminal. After clicking our terminal, here is our terminal. We need to right click and paste our virtual environment path. Now we are in the virtual environment, as you can see here. Then this is where we have to create our super user. Python manage.py create super user. I'm going to leave this blank because I want to use the default Django deploy. For email address, I'm just going to leave that blank because my project doesn't need one. You can put it if your project needs one. Then I can enter my password. As you can see, our super user was created successfully. Now it's time for us to go to our application. Now, as I said before, the options under your database settings now needs to be commented out because it was applied. So make sure you go and comment that out. Now we can start our Python application, but first we need to save, because we've been doing some configs on our file. We've been running some Python scripts, so we need to save. Every time we do that, we need to save our progress of our application. Python application saved. Any errors can be seen also here. Now we can start our Python application. Now it has started, so we need now to go and open our project, our website here. Now this is happening because of a certain thing that I'll talk about. When a domain name is created, the system creates a default index or placeholder index file. So we need to go to our file management and go under our public HTML. This is the file I'm talking about. We have to just delete that file. When that file was deleted, we can now visit our website. Again, our URL. Right, this is one of the errors that you can see. I shall talk about many others later. If you see this, then something is wrong with your passenger file. So go to your passenger file, open it. Like in this case, I did put demo.wsgi, yet my app is demo1. So make sure that you put the correct Django project name here, demo1.wsgi, so that your Python file can be loaded successfully. If you check under the log files, you may not see anything because of this error. Why? Because the log file can only be written to when the application is running. In this case, it's not. Let's save our file. After saving our file, we can now go to our demo one. We can go to our Django deploy.com and our application is running. Remember, I said I'm leaving debug true for us to be able to see this page. If you see this page, it means everything is running. You can now also open your admin to see if the database is working properly. We need to log in. You enter your username of the super user we created. You enter your password, then you log in. Oh, my password is wrong there. After entering the correct password, it means now I'm in. So this is my database. You create all your tables will be shown here, which are registered under your applications. So congratulations, your app is up and running. Now we need to talk about possible errors during deployment. And for these possible errors, I need to take you to my blog where you can see the errors. You can read for yourself and the possible solutions we shall discuss. My blog is found on blog.jeremiahtaguta.com. The main articles there, but the one that we want to open is the one on Django app deployment. If you prefer a text-based tutorial, this is your go-to because everything is written there. Now, besides the error which I mentioned where your app is not being saved due to the passenger file, there are some possible errors that you can come across. And one of them is the passenger file. But talking of another error, if you see this error here, depreciation warning, the IMP module is depreciated and stuff, and your application is not running, just make sure you go to your passenger error, remove everything that is there, and put this code from your project name.wsgi import application, and your error should be fixed. Of course, you put your project name in place of my demo one. Then error number 2 is when Apache server doesn't have read permissions. Sometimes when you open your URL for your website, you see Apache doesn't have read permissions to that folder. So what it means is that it is not being able to open your project. Normally this happens due to permissions issues which we discussed. So check that your permissions for your repositories is 755. If not, right click and set your permissions. But by default it should be 755. Also check that your demo 1 permissions are 755. That should fix your issues. The other error is error 500, which you normally see when you open your website. This is normally raise not supported. Sometimes you see an error 500, then you open your log file, which is under your set folder as per your application. In my case, under Django apps, this is my demo 1.txt, which I created manually. Unfortunately, there is nothing, but this is where your errors can show up. So you visit your website, you see an error 500, you open your log file, you see this error, then it means it's all about the database. You are running a Django version that is not compatible with your MySQL. This normally happens when your MySQL is 5 point something and you are using a Django version of 4.2 and more. So you can always set your Django in your requirements.txt to the correct or to the compatible Django version. Then you can save and run your file again. As I said, you don't need to go to your directory demo apps to change that. You can change that from here. The other possible error is again with the passenger error. When you see this error, passenger file.json for reading permission denied, error number 13. Set your file permissions and set your project permissions to 755. especially for the repositories folder and for your project folder. Then the other error is due to PIP version. This you normally see when you run your Python app. When you create your Python app, it shows up here. This error you can fix by going to your terminal as I explained before. Then you have to type this script to upgrade your PIP. Once that is done, the error should clear. CSS not applied. When your CSS is not being applied on your project, just make sure that you installed your white noise. You can add the latest version of white noise under your requirements.txt and run the PIP install as explained before. Then also under the security midway, go and add this midway. It should fix your issues. The other error that shows up is about the MySQL strict mode. This is the error. MySQL strict mode is not set for database connection. It's just a warning. It's a you need to set it. Otherwise, there will be data truncation upon insertion. So how do you fix that? You open your database settings, then you add a key options as I talked about earlier, and you put this command. It should fix your problems. So having talked about these errors, it means that we've almost come to the end of our video. So these are the steps that you have to follow. It's quite a straightforward process, and by following the steps that I mentioned here, you should be able to have your application up and running. Again, if you prefer a text-based tutorial, this is your go-to on my blog. Otherwise, this is our Python configuration where you choose your Python, your application route, your API. Make sure this continues like that. Don't just change. You can always edit your application URL if you want to add probably a path where your app is going to be saved from. But otherwise, this should continue like this unless necessary. Always make sure that this log file is set. So this marks the end of this video. Our Django app is up and running, and it is time for you to check if yours is running. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. Remember to comment under the comment section. You can always ask questions if you have any, and I'll be willing to assist. Always like, always share with your fellow developers, and remember to subscribe and click notification bell so that you can be notified when I create a new video. Also visit my blog for more detailed articles, probably on Python and Django. Don't try to visit the djangodeploy.jeremiah.com. It is going to be inaccessible after this video, as it was only made for demonstration purposes. Continue programming. Stay well. Bye.